Several years ago, the Society for Vascular Surgery asked James Yao and several other people to put together the History Project work group to interview pioneers and leaders in vascular surgery and document the history of vascular surgery in the United States. Recently, the Society for Vascular Surgery and the Society for Vascular Nursing has formed a affiliation agreement, and the president of the society, Ron Fairman, sent a memo to all the members in December 2016 outlining that historic agreement between our partners for many, many years anyways, who are now more formally allied. In the History Project work group, we decided it was appropriate, therefore, to interview some of the senior members of the Society for Vascular Nursing, and we have with us today Jean Doyle, who was one of the original 8 charter members and was the founding president in 1982, and Vicki Fahey, who was also one of the original 8 charter members and has been a vascular nurse for many years and is the author of the first comprehensive textbook of vascular nursing. And we're going to ask them some questions about the history of vascular nursing, and we also are going to ask Dr. Yao and Dr. Pierce, who's a professor at Northwestern. Dr. Yao is a professor at Northwestern, and me, Walt McCarthy, a professor at Rush University, to ask some questions about that background. Bill?
Jean, thank you for being here today. I think I'll begin with you and ask you about how you became involved in vascular nursing.
Well, it was a little bit by default, quite frankly. I had graduated from nursing school, in a timeline, I guess I could say, 1976. And the first 2 jobs I had in nursing were short-lived because my husband was playing professional hockey, so we moved around the country a little bit. But when we settled back in Boston, I took a job on a general surgery unit, and in that unit were housed the vascular surgery patients. And about a year into that, one of the surgeons that I ended up being mentored by wanted to form a collaborative practice arrangement with a nurse. And to his credit, he realized that there were many things that he couldn't do being in the OR all day with regard to supporting his patients and their families. And a position was posted for a nurse, and my nurse manager encouraged me to apply for that. And because he was a vascular surgeon, I by default became a vascular nurse. So that happened in 1979, and I worked with Dr. Jim Manzoyan, who I understand is part of your History Project work group now, and Dr. Frank Legerfo, and learned a tremendous amount from them, for sure.
What was your early mission with them? What was their goals they set forth, and what was that collaboration like?
Well, I think they really valued what nursing could bring to the table in terms of education, patient education, and family support. It was really a multifaceted role. I worked with them in their outpatient office as well, so I got to see patients along the continuum while they were hospitalized and then as they were recovering from their surgeries. And I think they just especially wanted someone who was available to their patients and families when they might not be. So their focus was really on working in partnership with a nurse to provide more comprehensive care for their patients.
How did you and Vicki and others come to found the Society for Vascular Nursing? What was the germ behind that idea?
So that's it's an interesting story as well, I think. It's really an idea that evolved over about an 18-month period. So as I mentioned, I started working in vascular nursing in 1979 and followed Jim and Frank everywhere in interventional radiology, went to the OR with them, tried to just soak up as much knowledge as I could. But about a year into it, I realized that they were wonderful mentors, but they weren't nurses. And I was looking to connect with other nurses who had a similar interest. So in the spring of 1980, I sent a letter to the editor of the American Journal of Nursing, and I actually said I was hoping to find other nurses who might be interested in caring for vascular patients that I would be able to learn from. And I got a nice short letter back from the journal editor saying, oh, thank you very much for thinking of us, but we'll probably never publish your letter because we get so many of them, etc. So I forgot about that networking opportunity. But then in October of that year, in 1980, Frank Legerfo went to the American College of Surgery meeting and came home very excited because he had met another nurse who was in a similar role. Her name was Nancy Jazenkowski, and she worked in Toledo, Ohio. And he brought her contact information back for me and said, you know, here's somebody you can relate to. So Nancy and I talked on the phone and wrote letters back and forth because there was no email then, and we only had landlines. Almost coincident with that, I started to get letters from nurses around the country. And unbeknownst to me, the American Journal of Nursing actually had published my letter to the editor, which had my contact information in it. So Vicki was one of the nurses that wrote to me. It turned out that we ended up with a core group of 8 nurses who spoke regularly and were excited about the prospect of potentially starting a specialty nursing organization.
I'm going to have you come back. I'm going to ask Vicki now a little bit. How did she get interested in vascular nursing?
Well, I worked, my initial job was on a general and vascular surgery unit, and the Drs. Bergen and Yao approached me after I had been in my position for about a year and asked me if I was interested in such a possibility of working as a vascular nurse clinician, is what the terminology they used. And again, similar to Jean's role, that they wanted me to do a lot of patient and education as well as coordination of patient care, but also they were very clear about expectations from the beginning about educating nursing staff and working with families. So I was interested in, I wanted to, at that time, I didn't realize the extent of vascular surgery, vascular disease being so broad of a topic, but I wanted to specialize. And as a nurse, you know, nurses have to work on a general surgery floor. Your knowledge is it needs to be so expansive, but if you specialized, I mean, physicians specialize. So I thought it was a great opportunity to just focus on one clinical area. And I was looking for meaningful work. I wanted to be part of a team, and I just felt that position would give me that opportunity.
Well, between the two of you, what was it you found about the vascular patient that you liked? You had great mentors, but there must have been something about the patients that you enjoyed above and beyond the general surgery patients. I'll go to you, Jean, first, and now that's Vicki.
Yeah, I think I found them challenging to care for, and the fact that they had a systemic disease process and basically chronic disease, it was an opportunity to build relationships with patients over time, and that was very appealing to me. I also, because their problems were very challenging, some of which weren't very glamorous, of course, it, I think, gave me an opportunity to focus on providing care that was much more comprehensive than I might be able to do at the bedside. And that was what appealed to me.
And Vicki?
Well, I agree with Jean. She kind of took all the words that I would have used. But I also feel that they had a lot of families. I mean, they had supportive families at the same time. I just felt that they needed education. I mean, they really needed support and communication.
Now, Jean, we were back. The six other nurses besides you and Vicki were communicating back in the late 70s and maybe early 80s. Now, what was your next step to make this an official society, and how did you go through the mechanics and your mission statement and your goals?
Okay. So we, as you said, the 8 of us corresponded over the course of many months. and kind of fed off each other's enthusiasm, I think. And another new group had formed almost at the same time, which is now called the Society for Vascular Ultrasound. At the time it was the Society for Non-Invasive Vascular Technology, or SNVIT. And one of our core members was also a charter member of SNVIT. So we identified a core group of nurses that might be interested in pursuing this idea with us, and we put together a questionnaire that we sent out to the nurse members of SNVIT. And in that questionnaire, which we had to mail with a stamp and get returned with a stamp, we asked them if they would support the idea of forming a specialty nursing organization focused on vascular nursing. And we got really a tremendous response from that questionnaire, like 66% return, which is almost unheard of with questionnaires. So we kept moving forward and decided that, as luck would have it, the Society for Vascular Surgery and the International Society for Cardiovascular Surgery were meeting in Boston in June of 1982, as was the SNVIT meeting. So we decided that we would capitalize on that opportunity and put together a wine and cheese reception, inviting nurses who were attending that meeting. And in those days, many nurses did attend that meeting because there were no vascular nursing meetings for them to go to. So we decided that we would, everyone likes wine and cheese, so we thought that was probably a good idea. And we held a wine and cheese reception. It was on June 15th in 1982. And as we were planning that, we enlisted the support of the surgeons that we worked with, inviting them to be part of a medical advisory board. Our focus was hoping that they would pay for the wine and cheese reception, quite frankly, which they graciously did. But the 8 of us actually had some very influential mentors in vascular surgery, and they were very supportive of the concept of formalizing a specialty nursing organization. So we, we did kind of a grassroots effort. We put up posters and flyers in the Fairmont Copley Plaza Hotel where the meeting was being held, and invited people to attend this wine and cheese reception. It was very well attended. People were very enthusiastic about the idea, so we decided to fly with it.
And how many people were there at that first meeting?
Well, I actually don't know that answer, but I recall about 100 or so.
So it was quite a few.
It was quite a few, but again, it was wine and cheese. So.
And now that was like 35 years ago.
35 years ago. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year.
Congratulations. And how many members do you have now?
Last I heard, we have about 500 members.
Congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment. What is your mission?
Our mission is really to be able to provide comprehensive care to vascular patients through nursing education and nursing research efforts, and improving practice excellence in vascular nursing.
Jean, many of the early vascular ultrasound people were RNs, and who was the charter member of both groups?
Her name was Mitzi Eakers, and she was a champion for us because, having been involved in SNVIT in their early years, she was well connected with the nurses in that organization and really kind of helped get them enthusiastic about the idea of a nursing organization.
What were some of the highlights of the early years of the nursing meeting?
I would say probably one of them was our very first convention. We held that in 1983 in San Francisco, and it was a half-day program. It was $5 to attend if you were a member, and $10 if you weren't a member. I think we held that at the Fairmont in San Francisco, and it again was very well attended and provided support for us to continue moving forward with our mission and our vision for the organization.
Was that in 1983?
In 1983.
So it was the next year.
Right.
Was it at the same time as the Society for Vascular Surgery?
It was. So until I think 1994, our meetings were held in tandem with the SVS meetings. And we, our membership kind of went back and forth about whether that was wise or not, because although we would meet in tandem, there wasn't a lot of collaborative effort between the two organizations, which I think now we have the opportunity to seize upon. But we seceded for a number of reasons, one of which is that the vascular surgeons meetings typically have to be in large convention cities with costly hotel prices, and since our members were often footing the bill for their own travel and expenses, we decided that we were a small enough niche group to meet in some smaller locations. So I think the first time we didn't meet in tandem with SVS was in 1994, and we met in St. Louis that year.
Every organization has challenges over the years. Are there some notable ones?
Yeah, I think they've been common throughout our 35-year history. I think the two major challenges have been membership recruitment and retention. I think Vicki alluded to the fact that as vascular surgeons, you decide that that's your career path and you follow that throughout your career, but nursing is very different than that. Nurses have lots of opportunities to move and work in different environments, and so to identify true vascular nurses we found challenging. It was also if a facility, if a hospital didn't have a dedicated vascular surgery unit, then nurses, potentially interested nurses, could work anywhere in a hospital. So identifying those potential members has always been challenging. And I think retaining the members for those same reasons has been challenging. And secondly, I think our major challenge has been an ability to establish a strong financial foundation for our organization. And I think lots of things come into play for that, with that. But again, because nurses typically aren't decision makers when it comes to purchases, for example, like OR equipment or ultrasound equipment or whatever, we don't have the leverage that physicians do in getting support from corporate partners. So we've done better at that, but I think that's been a challenge of ours as well.
Vicki, thinking about the dates now, so the first real meeting that was announced was in 1983, and then your textbook, of which I have the original version here.
Autographed copy, I hope.
It's an autographed copy. is copyrighted in 1988. So
the first.
So in other words, you must have started working on that several years before that, and so very soon after the society got started, you were getting going on the textbook because it took several years to put it together. Tell us about that.
Well, I got involved because with editing, I just want to clarify that I edited it, not wrote the entire book. I had some distinguished authors.
Two of whom are sitting here.
Three.
That's right.
Yes, three.
We all had our own.
Probably Jimmy also, right?
Right, four.
But from the very beginning of my position as a vascular clinician, vascular nurse specialist at the time, it was very clear from Drs. Bergen and Yao that they had that expectation that I would publish in nursing journals and edit a book as well. And I was given the opportunity to work in such an environment with all the experts in their field that I was learning something new every day, and so I felt like I had a professional responsibility to give back and share the information that the knowledge I had. So so that's how it was an expectation, but I also enjoyed writing and editing. So it's a great way to share your expertise. So that's how it got started.
And then how many editions of the book have been published?
Four.
When was the last edition published?
The last was 2004.
Tell us about the publication of it and and the numbers of books and so forth, just as some background. But it's a very important accomplishment to have published that book.
Thank you, thank you. I really am not exactly sure of the numbers in terms of selling, but I can tell you one was translated into Italian, which is kind of fun. But I have to say that it was really the mentoring that got me going on this.
One of your roles was to keep track of pictures of patients and conditions and wounds, and also diagrams of operations that you use for teaching.
Yes, that was very fortunate that I did take a lot of pictures because I was able to use them in the book, which was very helpful. But most of the chapters and the authors also submitted illustrations and pictures with their chapters.
Tell us about the Journal of Vascular Nursing. The two of you have contributed much to it and have had editorial responsibility and so forth.
Our first journal was published in the winter of 1982. It was a 6-page newsletter, really. We called it a journal. Our original name, by the way, was the Society for Peripheral Vascular Nursing. I didn't mention that. We felt very strongly that the word peripheral needed to be part of our organizational name to separate from cardiothoracic surgery. Down the road, we realized that we had a broader scope and that no one could pronounce or spell peripheral. So we decided that the name would be shortened to the Society for Vascular Nursing. But over the course of our 35 years, our journal has morphed from a 6-page newsletter to a journal that we had a graphic designer work with us on. And Vicki was the editor-in-chief in that phase. And now our journal is published quarterly by Elsevier. And our editor-in-chief is Cindy Lewis. Cindy lives in Milwaukee. And she has an editorial board that's internationally recognized, and it's peer-reviewed and ranked in the top 50% of specialty nursing journals, which I think we can be very proud of.
It is the Journal of Vascular Nursing, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Are there other publications that the Society has sponsored?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are. We have written a scope and standards of vascular nursing in concert with the American Nurses Association, and we've published just recently the 2nd edition of a core curriculum in vascular nursing, which is designed as, along with Vicki's textbook, as the foundation for study for vascular nursing certification.
I have a question about the way that the societies often recognize accomplishments of their members. Is there a way that your society does that?
We do, actually. We have quite a few different awards that are given out to members in recognition of their work. I'm humbled to say one of them is the Jean Doyle Award. It's nice that it's not a posthumous award. I'm glad to be around to be able to hand the award over to people each year. And Vicki was the 4th recipient of that award, so that's very special. We also have an Emeritus Award named after one of our long-term members, Jean Nunnally. We have a Distinguished Service Award. We have chapter awards, and at our convention we acknowledge special presentations and things like that. But I would say that the 4 awards that I mentioned are probably the highlights of the recognition that SVN grants to its membership.
I think there's been travel awards in the past as well.
There have been travel scholarships and things like that as well, yep.
What are some of the Society for Vascular Nursing's major initiatives?
Well, I think they go back to our mission, which are focused on practice education and research. So we actually support vascular nursing research with funding. We are now working collaboratively with about 15 like-minded organizations and working on things like guideline writing committees. So we have involvement we're at the table with a lot of other like-minded organizations in promoting public awareness about vascular disease and continuing to promote education of vascular nurses.
Vicki, around the time that your textbook was published, you started a conference related to vascular nursing. Tell us some about that.
Well, again, it was an expectation that I share knowledge and educate nurses. And so Northwestern, the hospital, was extremely supportive of organizing this conference and paying for it to be held. And the faculty, the invited faculty, was made up of nurses and vascular surgeons and at Northwestern, as well as interventional radiologists over the years, hematologists, any group that impacted vascular disease. And there were approximately, I would guess, about 80 to 150 people who attended, nurses who attended the meeting over the years. And this past year, in the fall of 2016, they celebrated their 30th meeting. And I was graciously asked to come back to give a talk.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I would like to ask both of you, from a very broad perspective, to look back over the 30 years and start to look into the future. There's been a lot of change in vascular surgery, and our clinical practice has enormously evolved from open surgery to endovascular surgery, and we've all had to adapt to that. In addition, because of the changes in the healthcare rules and laws, we have relied more and more on mid-level practitioners. So I would give your view about how are they part of your group? Do you actively engage them? And that's part one. And then the second part of the question is, now there's so much emphasis on readmissions to hospitals. How do you see your role in the collaboration now with your physicians? It seems, from my perspective, and I'm sure Dr. McCarthy's, is that you're becoming more invaluable to the practice of vascular surgery.
To address the first question about working with mid-level practitioners, in my current role, some would say I've gone to the dark side. I work in vascular medicine now. But in our clinic, we have realigned our practice delivery into a team structure. So I work directly with both physician's assistants and nurse practitioners, and I've had nothing but positive experiences working with them. I think that it's, as you said, there are lots of challenges in healthcare now, and I think that they serve a very valuable role in offloading some of what might have fallen on your shoulders in the past. My experience has been a very positive one. With regard to the question about keeping people out of the hospital or preventing readmissions.
It's really how we work as a team, how the vascular surgeons and you guys, you as the nurses, how we're a team, really, and it's become so much more important now. It was important in past years, but I think it's critically important. I think what I want you to do is give some words of wisdom about our relationships.
Well, I must say I'm delighted about the formal alliance between the two organizations. And, you know, as Vicki and I were sharing earlier, these conversations have happened in the past but have never materialized. And I think that now the time is ripe for maximizing the opportunity to work together. And I think we have a lot of unique talent to bring to the table on both sides. So I would agree that working as a team likely provides much more broad-based and comprehensive care to the patient and support to their family. And I think if we work together well, our outcomes will improve, and we'll probably be able to keep people at home and not in the hospital, which I think is certainly a focus of today's healthcare environment.
The continuity of care, I think, is affected through the teamwork, but also communication, which you mentioned. But I also think that the readmission to hospitals is very much affected by our educating nurses to the quality of care they provide, but also educating of community nurses, the visiting nurses. We play a huge role in educating them because they're caring for the patients at home or in nursing homes. In order to keep them out of the hospital, they need to know about vascular disease.
What would you tell a nurse today about being involved with your society?
That there's huge benefits in terms of personal and professional growth and keeping up to date with clinical practice. And it's a great networking opportunity as well as developing lasting relationships with people. I think that it's also a multi-dimensional part of your career, just like physicians I was surrounded by very academically oriented physicians, and as a result, my career went that same route in terms of, in addition to your clinical care, it developed from an educational standpoint and professional society organizations. I think there's a great opportunity for impacting quality of patient care through being involved in an organization. I think it's an opportunity to find a mentor in an organization, even if it's not within your own institution. And also it gives you an opportunity to become a leader in your field. I think that that's key.
Well, I would totally agree. I would totally agree. And I think, for me personally, having been involved for 35 years, I've made lasting friendships and have been able to be influenced by some very wonderfully talented nurses who are very willing to share their knowledge and expertise. I think being a small organization, we find that there's not so much kind of turf control or people being, possessive of what they've developed in their institution and not wanting to share that. I must say that our organization does that freely, and it's very easily accessible. If our members, an example would be a member of ours who was found out 2 days before the first EVAR patient was going to be operated on in her institution, and she was the educator on the unit and had to prepare the nurses for what that meant in terms of that patient's post-operative management. And she said, I literally panicked, but then I sent out an email through our society's listserv, and she said, I came to work the next day and I had everything I needed to prepare my nurses to care for that patient. And when the patient was discharged, he said, thank you for taking such good care of me. And she said, nurses all over the country took care of you, which I thought was such a wonderful tribute to what she was able to benefit from by being a member of the organization. I certainly think this alliance with the Society for Vascular Surgery is a wonderful opportunity for both organizations to benefit from one another. And I'm very excited that SVS seems equally excited to be involved with us as we are with them.
We certainly are. Do you tell us about what you envision the future of your society to be?
Well, I think the future is particularly bright given the events of December when we formed this alliance with SVS. I think that if we have the right attitude and we have the proper focus, that our possibilities are endless, really, in terms of impacting and continuing to improve care of vascular patients. I certainly know I look forward to the next 35 years. I'd love to be sitting at this table 35 years from now. I doubt that will happen, but I think we're very excited about our future.
Any last comments, Vicki or Jean?
I would just like to say that in terms of how nurses can impact patient care and the different dimensions of clinical education and research, I think that vascular nurses have a great opportunity in terms of patients, families, nurses. If nurses, the more knowledgeable they are, the better care they're going to give their patients. And I feel like that it's essential to them feeling competent as well as competent as well as confident. And I do think research is helping to enlarge the foundation of, as Jean mentioned earlier, it helps enlarge the foundation of knowledge and strengthens the scientific basis for vascular nursing practice. So looking at ways to identify clinical areas that nurses can investigate, and evaluating the effectiveness of our interactions, I think, is important.
Any last comments, Jean?
I certainly appreciate being part of the History Project. I think, we're poised to do great things, and I look forward to the future.
Well, we would all really thank you for coming and talking with us and sharing the background of your society and your group with us today.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here. Thanks.
I'd like to make one last comment in terms of a quote I came across, and it was from a Buddhist teacher, and it talked about caring about our work, liking it, and even loving it. Seems strange when we see work only as a way to make a living. But when we see work as a way to deepen and enrich all of our experience, we can use every aspect of work to learn and grow. And it's just, I have to say again, due to the fact that I worked with great people in my clinical environment as well as my professional organization, I've been very fortunate that my career in vascular nursing has been so rewarding.
Thank you.